Good evening, this is Viewpoint. I'm Zaka Jacob. Omicron cases are increasing across the country. There are more than 500 now, while most cities from Delhi to Mumbai to Bangalore have all instituted night curfews. There seems to be no curfew, no ban whatsoever on political rallies. The Election Commission today had a briefing from the Health Ministry. No decision has been taken by the Election Commission on whether or not to ban these political rallies. The problem is this: we have seen a repeat of this in early 2021. Could we end up making the same mistake as we did last time around? Is it time for the EC to crack down on physical rallies and start thinking of shifting to virtual ones?
Bharat Mata Ki.
Huge crowds, no social distancing, hardly a mask in sight. In election season, the pandemic has taken a backseat. Name any party campaigning in any state, and this is the sight you see. Ironically, Uttar Pradesh, the biggest state going to polls in weeks from now, has announced several curbs to fight the spread of COVID and the new Omicron variant, including a night curfew.
Namah Parvati Patiye Hara Hara.
But election rallies in the state are kosher. Last week, the Allahabad High Court requested the Election Commission and Prime Minister Modi to postpone the UP elections by a month or two because jaan hai to jahan hai. The court said only if there is life, then the election rallies and meetings can take place, and the right to life has also been given under Article 21 of the Constitution. Health Ministry officials briefed the Election Commission on rising cases and vaccination coverage status. But so far, not a word on postponing polls or curbs on rallies.
कोविड को मैनेज करने के लिए क्या-क्या उपाय कमीशन ने लिए हैं और हम लोग जो भी एक कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल पोजीशन होगी और जो भी एक आरपीएफ के मद्देनजर जो भी चीज होगी वो हम लोग उसमें डेफिनेटली एक्शन लेंगे।
21 दिसंबर को भारत सरकार ने राज्य सरकारों के लिए एक स्टैंडर्ड टेम्पलेट जारी किया था। ये इंटरवेंशन कंटेनमेंट, टेस्टिंग एंड सर्वेलेंस, क्लिनिकल मैनेजमेंट, वैक्सीनेशन और कोविड अप्रोप्रिएट बिहेवियर से संबंधित हैं।
After all, it was only a few months ago when elections took place before the second wave devastated India. During the 8-phase elections in Bengal, active cases went up a whopping 24 times. While DMK and AIA-DMK were slugging it out, active cases in Tamil Nadu rose 10 times during polls. And in Kerala, there was a 6.5 times rise in active cases during polls, and the aftershocks are continuing even today. Here we are again, with another election dawning upon us, and a far more virulent strain fast spreading through the country. Experts have predicted that a third wave will peak in February with 1 to 1.5 lakh cases a day. That's also around the time when elections are likely to take place. Will any lessons be learnt? Can there be curbs on rallies? Or will it be politics over health?
Is it time for the Election Commission to step in, ban physical rallies, look at virtual rallies? We don't want a repeat of 2021. Shaina NC is joining us, spokesperson of the BJP. Aam Aadmi, spokesperson of the Congress Party. Dr. Nandkumar Jairam is former CEO and chairman at the Columbia Asia Hospitals. And Dr. Chandrakant Laharia is epidemiologist and public health specialist. Shaina, I'll start with you. You know, it almost seems like deja vu. In 2021, we had the elections to 5 states, Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, etc. That led to a big peak. We saw the second wave and the damage that it did in April and May. Are we now fated to make the same mistake as last time around? Because I don't see the Election Commission stepping in to curb these rallies.
Well, Zaka, in all honesty, what the Supreme Court said absolutely makes sense. Ki jaan hai to jahan hai, nahi to koi fayda hi nahi. In that sense, the Honorable Prime Minister has also left it to health experts. We know that the Health Secretary has met with the Election Commission expressing concerns, and it is a decision that the Election Commission has to take. As far as the political party is concerned, yes, the Bharatiya Janata Party is totally aware that India and Indians need to be safe. This is not about one political party. This is about the process of democracy and the way elections are held. Now, on the one hand, we do know that, February could be a very crucial month for us. Yeah. And we do want to take every provision, whether it's virtual rallies, whether it is making sure that, citizens are taking every precaution and spreading that awareness too. But having said that, this is finally a decision of the Election Commission.
Sure.
The Election Commission will decide whether rallies should be virtual, whether there should be numbers which are limited, and we as a responsible political party will completely adhere to it.
No, so the thing that I'm curious about, and it's not one political party or one government that's responsible for this. At the end of the day, the Allahabad High Court is absolutely right. Yeah. Jaan hai to jahan hai. But what I'm curious about, and I want to ask Aishwarya Mahadev this, we are seeing across the board now, major metro after metro, whether it's Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, are all instituting night curfews, but there doesn't seem to be any sort of curfew or ban on political rallies. And this is exactly the same thing that we saw in late 2020, early 2021. I mean, it's almost like the virus, spreads only through the night, therefore let's have a night curfew, but it doesn't spread through political rallies. Aishwarya Mahadev.
Good evening, Zaka. I completely agree with what you're saying, because let's be honest, it's not like Corona has a time period where it acts. It's not like a night curfew is going to stop the unprecedented rise of cases. If anything, it causes more economic hardship, especially this time of year. And when a government feels it is okay to impose night curfews, which affect the livelihood of millions of people, I think it should also be far more responsible in ensuring that this festival of democracy, which are elections, do not become a death knell for the masses, because the scale and proportion of these rallies are much higher. And I think it is time for the government to take proactive decision on this, because let's be honest, Zaka, if the BJP is going to go out and campaign, we also are inevitably going to have to go out to the people, because it is politics at the end of it. Yes, even last year we saw that the march that we had planned for the Congress party, we delayed it because of COVID. We've taken a lot more decisions in terms of preventing large mass scale meetings also, but we're coming close to elections. It's an inevitability, but it should not come at the cost of lives. And I hope that the Election Commission, free and fair as you may call it, despite the meetings that they've had with the top conchos of this country.
So if all political parties decide, okay, let's not have physical rallies, or let's cut down the number of physical rallies, then surely the Election Commission will find that conducive to make that move. But no political party has come forth and said that. But let me ask Dr. Chandrakant Laharia, and what is of particular worry, Dr. Laharia, is you look at the states that are going to polls, the 5 states that are going to polls. I'll just take the example of the top 2 or 3. Uttar Pradesh, the biggest state, the percentage of adults who've received the first dose is close to 60%, but the people who've received the second dose is only about 30%. You look at Punjab, the people who receive the first dose is a little over 50%. The people who receive the second dose is just about 30%. So the worry is, it's not just about these rallies, but it's also going in states where not everybody has got the second dose of the vaccine yet. In fact, a good number of people have not got the second dose of the vaccine yet. And then you have these mass gatherings. Dr. Laharia. Dr. Laharia, that question is to you, sir. Yes. Okay. Let me ask that to Dr. Nandkumar Jairam. Dr. Jairam, do you want to take that question?
To take that question?
Yes.
You're so correct. It is absolutely vital for us to understand that the second dose of vaccine is vital in increasing the level of immunity in everybody. So not having a population that is widely vaccinated for the second dose creates an even greater risk of them contracting the Omicron. And it is also clear, especially from the South African experience, that vaccination is substantially protective against Omicron, especially the severity of the Omicron. So the answer to your question is, yes, it is worrisome. Can we inoculate at super speed? Obviously not. And therefore, other measures are certainly important. And one of them would be to socially distance, and therefore the relevance of avoiding political rallies.
Dr. Laharia, I think his audio is patched back now. Would it make eminent sense to have some sort of curbs on political rallies especially in light of the fact, and I gave out the statistics of the vaccination percentage in the states that are going to polls. In fact, if you look at a small state like Manipur, which is one of the 5 that's going to polls, under 50% have been vaccinated both with the first and second shot. And that is of very, very deep concern, because we've had a surge in the northeastern states, and now you have one of the northeastern states going to polls. Surely it would be common sense that we put some kind of curbs on these physical rallies, maybe have a proportion of virtual rallies as opposed to having all physical rallies. And even in those physical rallies, you see, I mean, nobody's wearing a mask, there's no social distancing, it's just masses and masses of crowds. Dr. Lahare.
I completely agree with you, but we need to remember one thing, that December 2021 or early next year is not March or April 2021. Because the reason is that before, in the early this year, there was majority of population was susceptible, then we had no vaccine or vaccination was for limited population. So scenario has changed. At the same time, I would say that we have a real threat of emergence of Omicron. There is a possibility of increase in the Delta variant cases. So we need to have a calibrated response to the election rally or any social activity. So in my opinion, while the night curfews are little excessive at this point of time, similarly we can be little more relaxed in election rallies at this point of time. But what is more important, that we need to have a roadmap that what would be done to the election rally or other social gatherings if the cases rise. And what we are seeing right now, and that's the key, the moot point, that there is a differential approach to different activities. That election rallies are allowed in large gatherings, which may be fine, but then you are putting night curfew, or even other functions are not being allowed sufficiently. So the response to the pandemic or emergence of cases or social activity need to be proportionate. While I don't see immediate threat or challenge that in conducting election, but we should be prepared for the scenario where there is a rise in the cases, and then how rally should be organized, what number of people should be allowed. If a marriage function or wedding function is allowed only for 200 people, of course, a rally is conducted in the bigger ground, but then it should not be many thousands of people. It could be a few thousand people if the area is bigger. So it has to be proportionate to the challenge which we see at that point of time, and that kind of calibrated, nuanced approach has to be designed and agreed, so we do not go into a panic mode or no action is taken till it's very late.
No, so I want to ask Shaina NC that. I think that's a perfectly valid point that Dr. Laharia is making. If wedding receptions and other social engagements have been capped at 200 people, no matter how big or small the venue is, then why shouldn't a similar sort of cap be there on political rallies? Of course, you can't have a political rally with 200 people, but surely it can be a few thousand as opposed to tens of thousands.
So I think it's a very good suggestion that Dr. Laharia has given, and Rajesh Bhushan, the Health Secretary, has also said that, we need to have appropriate behavior, and has spoken to the Election Commission and vice versa. And I'm sure that Mr. Chandra, in the best interest of all, would have a proportion in place or suggest virtual rallies at most. And every political party should adhere to it and will adhere to it, because elections is one thing, but as we said earlier, the Honorable Supreme Court and its guidelines to suggest that if you have no life, what's the point of even living? I mean, and trying to live in this kind of a situation. It is for the cadre to abide by what every political party decides in lieu of the Election Commission's guidelines, and none of us will violate it. That is a guarantee as far as the Bharatiya Janata Party is concerned, because I'm sure that the Honorable Prime Minister, as he has
but
always
Shaina,
said,
I think the point that the opposition is also making is, the initiative should come from the government as opposed to from the Election Commission, and more so, I think the point that the opposition is trying to drum home is the independence of the Election Commission has been compromised, so on and so forth. Therefore, all the more reason why the initiative should come from the government and not from the Election Commission.
It should come from both. Why leave one? I mean, the government and the Prime Minister is most responsible. He has always said nation first, party next, individual last. And in these trying circumstances where you have an invisible terrorist, despite the fact of being vaccinated or not, I think there has to be a partnership with the cadre of all political parties. You see the kind of Samajwadi Party rallies also, those are no less. and I don't think anyone's in a competition, but the guidelines will set what is legal and what is lawful and what is not, and in these circumstances, we all need to be responsible citizens.
Okay, Aishwarya Mahadev, I think yes, Shaina is right. It's not just BJP rallies, even Samajwadi Party rallies in UP, for example, are drawing huge crowds. I just want to go back to what happened in early 2021. And the reason I'm going back to this is because it seems like, and unfortunately it seems like a rerun of what we went through in the early part of this year. When in the last round of assembly elections, when Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, etc. went to polls, the number of active cases in Bengal, for example, rose 24 times in the 3-month period of the election. In Tamil Nadu, it rose by 10 times. In Kerala, despite its health infrastructure, it rose by 6.5 times. The point is, we have this lesson in front of us. We have this example in front of us. And by the way, these are all opposition rule states. So it's not just a BJP rule state issue alone. We have this example in front of us. Why don't we learn from it?
I think, Zaka, you're absolutely right, because we saw that the mass outbreaks, these super spreader events, also pushed the health infrastructure to the brink, and we couldn't cope with it. We saw the oxygen crisis, and we saw a lot more crises after that. And I think that is the point where you proactively look to first be equitable to all political parties. Second, also ensure the safety of all these people. So if you want to come out with guidelines, please do not make them open-ended. One. Second, you do realize there are a lot of regional parties that also cater to the aspirations of the people that are there. So if you come out with guidelines, and we really hope that you do, this idea of postponing elections is not a bad one at all. If you look at it, especially with the fact that this exponential rise of cases and this multiplier in terms of the virus exists, once in 3 days, you see that the cases double and a peak that is impending.
Again, you look at the states that are going to polls. Goa is the only state which has first dose 80% and second dose almost 70% of all the eligible adults. So that seems to be the only. Look at Manipur, for example, 42% first dose and 31% both doses. Now, just now we've got information that's breaking that Manipur is reporting its first Omicron case. I want to go back to Dr. Jairam and ask him, one of the things that we're constantly being told is, Omicron is milder, it's not going to be as deadly as Delta, therefore don't worry about it. Is that something that we can take refuge in?
Well, Zaka, the fact is that Omicron is milder, but it doesn't mean that you should take refuge in it and then do what you want to. It is important to remember that while Omicron is mild, it affects a very much larger proportion of people. What does this mean? It means that the vulnerable are more likely to get infected as well. And if the vulnerable get infected, then it affects the hospital infrastructure. Also to be noted is that children are more likely to be affected and be hospitalized with Omicron compared to other strains. Therefore, caution is the buzzword. And I think that the more careful you are, the better it is. And I cannot but emphasize the need to vaccinate the remaining population much faster and quicker, especially on the second dose.
Okay, I'll give the final word to Dr. Laharia. One concern, and I think those numbers sort of stand out, especially in big states like UP and Punjab, where under 50% are under 50% are double vaccinated. As opposed to smaller states like Goa, etc., where more than 80% have got first dose and almost 70% have got second dose. Would it be a good idea to take a fresh look at, if there are states that are going to polls where more than 50% have got double vaccinated, then that they are in a slightly better position. Therefore, the Election Commission can think of slightly, relaxed rules for political rallies, etc., whereas in other states where it's nowhere close to 50% fully vaccinated, maybe the Commission should look at more stringent sort of restrictions. Dr. Laharia.
Definitely more thinking is required in this direction, but we need to remember one thing, that whatever is the first shot or two-shot vaccine coverage in that state, the similar is a COVID-appropriate behavior. So if a state has a lower vaccination coverage, they also have a lower adherence to COVID-appropriate behavior. That's what we know through field reports. Now, that brings me to the second point. The point is that while vaccines are useful, they provide individual protection or prevent the individual from falling sick and hospitalized. But to prevent the transmission, what we need is adherence to COVID-appropriate behavior. Yeah. And as I said earlier, if vaccination coverage is low, the COVID-appropriate behavior is also low. So what is required for conducting good elections in safe manner, it will be very useful that while vaccination coverage is increased, but election commission and political parties also start looking in the direction that how the political rallies can be utilized to inculcate or nudge people to adopt COVID-appropriate behavior. In my opinion, the COVID-appropriate behavior will be very essential during the entire process of elections. And final point I want to make, that government and also probably election commission should be looking at the professional agencies who know science communication or behavior change communication, that while elections are coming in those states, the communication strategy is implemented, that during the election rally, COVID-appropriate behavior of face masks, physical distancing, and ventilation is followed. And that would be a real serve the purpose of democracy as well as preventing the COVID spread in the country. Okay,
I want to thank all our guests, even as we're awaiting this breaking news. And this is not looking good. This is not a good sign. The city of Mumbai, which is now reporting a huge jump, 809 new positive cases of COVID-19 in Mumbai. 3 deaths have been reported in the city as well. 335 patients have been discharged. The total number of active cases in the city as of now is about 4,700. So there's been a huge jump, and we're seeing this pattern. We're seeing this in Delhi. We're seeing this now in Mumbai, and I suspect, and I'm afraid, we might see a similar jump all the way through to the new year because of this festivities and people going out and so on and so forth. Let me get Herman with more details on this. Herman, so 809, that's a significant jump. Do we have any numbers, any data on after how many days Mumbai is seeing such a large number of single-day cases?
Well, Zaka, good evening. In fact, what I can tell you is that clearly why the BMC has been pulled up, including by the same administration of the Maha Vikas Aghadi government. What they've been stating is that in the last few days, it was due to the lower level of testing that, the numbers are significantly low. But today that we are looking is that 809 new positive cases in Mumbai alone today, 3 deaths occurring. Besides that, 335 people who have been discharged. But besides that, this also comes on a day when there's a high-level meeting that has been taken by the municipal commissioner in Mumbai along with the various health officers as well as the ward officers in Mumbai. What can we expect from now on? Well, it is along the lines that Mr. Nawab Malik, the cabinet minister of the NCP, I beg your pardon, has been stating, is that in the 2nd or the 3rd week of January in the upcoming year, it could not be a very good year as far as the people of Mumbai are concerned. Because what they are anticipating is that there could be a significant rise, not just in the number of COVID cases, but as well as the Omicron number of variants is concerned. And here,
I'm afraid we're out of time, but thank you very much for those details from Mumbai. It's not looking good, 809 cases. We know a large number of them are milder, yes, but there have been 3 deaths as well. As we wrap up, 2 days after Prime Minister Modi's big announcement about vaccines for teenagers and precautionary doses for healthcare workers and senior citizens, we now have a blueprint of that process. Here's an excerpt of my colleague Runjan Sharma's exclusive interview with COVID Chief R.S. Sharma.
Dr. Sharma, when is the registration opening for children above the age of 15? And also when is the registration opening for the precautionary dose?
Well, the registration for children will open on the New Year's Day, that is 1st of January, where they will be able to register on the platform. And let me also clarify that children born, we have kept the whole process very simple. Children born in the year 2007 or before will be eligible for vaccination, and they can register on or after 1st of January. But the vaccination will start from 3rd of January.
All right, what is going to be a valid certificate for children, because they don't have a voter ID? It's usually the school certificate that they have.
Excellent question. I think we have added, there are 9 documents which are good for identification, but we have added 10th document also for children, which is basically their school identity card. So if they have a school identity, that should be good enough for children.
Also, Dr. Sharma, what vaccine will be available on the platform for children? Because right now, the Drug Controller General of India has okayed 2 vaccines. One is Zydus and the other one is Covaxin. Also, will both the vaccines be available? And if both the vaccines are available, will there be a choice for children?
Absolutely. Both the vaccines, as and when, Drug Controller General of India approves any vaccine for children, that same vaccine will be available on COVID platform also. Obviously, the availability of the vaccine hospital-wise will depend which hospital is administering which vaccine. That will be available on the COVID platform, so children can see as to which vaccine is being administered for children. So that's the way it is going to work. Similar to what is happening now also.
My big question is,